It's already heated in the studios. I mean, we're debating E-Levy and whether it should have been passed or not, on what platform and all of that. But even before we go into that, if you just tuned in, this is the big issue on TV3Newday. We're streaming live on Facebook at TV3 Ghana. You can also watch us on DSTV channel 279. Honorable Sam George is here. He's the MP for Ningo Pram Pram. Kwabena Bonford Jr. is the managing editor for the National Forum newspaper. And Charles Bisu is the Western Regional Secretary to the MPP. Quick one, Black Stars and how you feel about it. Like I said, I've seen you trolling the Nigerians so much on social media, but that also speaks to the fact that we were expecting the Black Stars to perform. Did they for you?
Well, let me use this opportunity to congratulate the Black Stars and say that we're proud of what they did. The night before, I had done my post about the Black Stars winning in Nigeria and calling the Nigerians out for turning off the lights in the MKO Abiola Stadium, and they came back at me. As Nigerians will, and all of that, and said that they were bookmarking my tweets to come and troll me after. And so when we won, and I told them that they didn't have a Super Eagles, they had Super Chicken. And I was going to use it for Indomie. It was a new Indomie flavor, Indomie Super Chicken flavor. and when they fell down flat, in the words of Kelvin Boy.
It's when you're using words, phrases.
I just had to call them out and tell them that whilst we would be watching the Black Stars in Qatar, they'll be watching the Super Chickens in a witchcraft movie on Netflix.
Oh my God.
Because the Nigerians, and I think that we just need to call the Nigerians out and say that the violence and indiscipline that they showed yesterday at the end of the game is most despicable. And I'm calling on CAF and FIFA to ban Nigeria from playing home games, at least for their next 4 or 5 games in Nigeria. They should be made to play their home games in Republic of Benin or Togo. Yes, to serve as a lesson to the Nigerian fans. They came to Kumasi. We didn't score in Kumasi, but they were treated with decorum. Yes, forget the hopscotch that we did to them when they were jumping down from their plane. I mean, they also turned off the light. But we did not carry out any act of anger against them. It had to take security personnel and some Nigerian journalists we must celebrate to whisk Ghanaian journalists and Ghanaian players and Ghanaian fans. Some of our fans were attacked. You understand me? The CAF agent for doping on the day, a Zambian doctor, was killed.
Yeah, but I've just seen a tweet from Sadiq Abdullah. He says that it wasn't Sadiq Adams, pardon me. He says that a CAF representative has said that the death of that man was not as a result of the violence.
Well, that's what he said.
He suffered a cardiac arrest.
No, but what led to his cardiac arrest was the fact that he was attacked and he was trampled upon. We've heard Nigerian journalists. Sadiq Adams shouldn't say what he doesn't know. Okay, and so the point we are making here is very simple. That the unfortunate things, and this is not the first time, we've seen the incidents from 1973 where they set our bus on fire. I mean, are we also going to say that the next time the Super Eagles or the Super Chickens come to Ghana, we should also met out violence? I mean, if you were strong, if you say you are strong men, score us on the pitch. You said you had 9 strikers, we didn't have any striker. But it took the Arsenal player, Thomas Tay Partey, the Arsenal player.
Who they were celebrating when the Black Stars landed
the Arsenal
in Nigeria,
player. He's the one who went and scored. The Arsenal player. That goal he scored is from the Colney training grounds of Arsenal. We've practiced that several times. So and Ghana is benefiting from it, and I'm very proud of Thomas Tay Partey. I'm proud of the boys. But let me serve one note of caution.
Okay.
The nation is celebrating the return of Ghana to the World Cup after the debacle of 2018 when we didn't make it to the World Cup. This is a warning. And read my lips and hear me well. It's a warning to our sports administrators. This is not an invitation for them to misuse public funds. This is not an invitation for them to think, for people to think that they are going to build houses out of the Black Stars qualifications. We are going to hold them to account for every peso and every dime. Proper training and proper preparation should be put in place for the boys. We are not interested in coefficient. The money should be spent on the team and not on ball boys and administrators.
Okay.
That is a warning we are serving to them.
Okay.
We'll gradually build the love back and hope that we get to Qatar later this year and it will be the twinkle, twinkle Black Stars of Ghana who would lift the African flag high again.
Absolutely. Charles, what do you have to say about the Black Stars performance?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to wish the president a belated happy birthday. As he's always said, the battle is the Lord's. Yesterday was the Lord's blessings was manifested upon Ghana. We had a hat trick, E-Levy, his birthday, and the Black Stars. I mean, we couldn't ask for more. Football always brings us together. And one thing that, I mean, triggered me, or actually made me feel emotional, was when I saw the French ambassador wearing a Ghanaian shirt with the inscription Akosua at the back, saying that the eagles can never reach the skies because the stars are up there. That really touched me. And going beyond, I think I would have to congratulate the guys. I think that competition brings the best out of people. And so going forward, I know that it's not all of them that will be going to Qatar. What has happened will propel most Ghanaian the youth to actually engage in football, even if they're not in the first division, second division, and all that. So I think this should be, this win should be an emancipation of our football, because football has gone down following the Anas video, Kwesi Nyantakyi and all that. Because I remember in 2006, I was in the UK when I went to Leicester to watch the Reggae Boys and the Ghana Black Stars. I met Kwesi Nyantakyi, an affable guy, interacting with the fans, and it was beautiful. And most Ghanaians from Scotland, wherever, came, and the Leicester Stadium was actually charged. At that point, I saw a lot of other countries supporting Ghana, and that actually traveled into the World Cup proper in Germany, where we actually got that confidence. Hitherto, we had football where I remember Samir J and Effenberg, when we didn't have a lot of hours playing out there. So when that was the Wake debacle, when we lost 6-1 to Germany, when there was a joke that Samir J actually went to watch Effenberg. So we conceded 6 goals. Following that, most of the players, Michael Essien, they all started playing international football, and then we started rubbing shoulders with them. This even goes into our politics as well. Hitherto, where we have to wait for the white men to come and tell us how we run our economy. And then later on, we had the Aprekus, Nana Akufo-Addo, Asabi, and the lot coming from, I call it the brain gain for our politics in Ghana. And then they came together, helped us. And then Ghana, following the 1992 Constitution, the 4th Republican Constitution, we were able to actually rub shoulders with them. But I would ask for more, where we actually go into our transactions, where the multinationals come into Ghana, hitherto when we didn't have the technical know-how, and that we had to extract our natural resources, transport it for them to refine and sell them back to us. I think we have to renegotiate, using that expertise, ensure that everything stays within Ghana.
Okay, all right. Well, just before I go to Kabila, we have another guest joining us via Zoom, Dr. Edu Owusu-Sarkodie. He's an economics lecturer at the University of Ghana. Good morning, and thanks for joining us, Doc.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. Good morning to everybody in the studio.
Are you also celebrating the victory of the Black Stars?
Yes. I was looking for my Black Stars replica jersey, but this is what I found.
Okay.
So at least I have the Kente inside.
Okay. Well, you look good. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, by the way. Any advice, by the way?
I'm back in Ghana.
Okay.
I'm back in Ghana, so I'll come to the studio next time.
No problem. Any advice for the players, quickly, as we start preparing for Qatar?
Yeah, I think we are all happy, and I like the way the victory has calmed the country, because without this victory, a lot of issues would have come out. But we know we have our problems, the global economy with its problems. But this victory, the jubilation, and all that has made all of us happy. And so they should just keep doing well, go to the World Cup and raise up the flag of Ghana, make us proud. When we travel, we are always proud, because when foreigners, they mention Abedi Pele, they mention Samuel Jan, and we feel so proud. So Pate and Ayu and all those other players, they should make us proud so that when we go outside, we can boast of them. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. Kabila, your take on the Black Stars performance and that caution that Honorable Sam George gave.
I associate myself fully with the caution he gave. And let me begin by saying congratulations to the nation Ghana, and we thank Almighty God, whose name begins a preamble of our national constitution, has allowed us again an entry into the world stage of the most popular sporting event, soccer. We must go there and make the nation proud. We must go there and lift the flag of Ghana and the black race higher and higher. You see, Bella, it reminds me of the last verse of Max Ehrmann's Desiderata. And you know, he says 1927 and then copyrighted 1952. With all its charm, drudgery and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy. With all our challenges, amidst all the storms, amidst the confusions, the troubles and the setbacks, Ghana is still a nation we have, and we can make it better than it is today. Let us move forward in hope. Let us move forward in the desire to make ourselves better with trust and confidence and love. Love that emanates from the source of love itself, God Almighty. And let's make manifest our profession to the word of God, be it the Quran or the Bible. Because our biggest problem in this country is the delusion, the deception, and the deceitful lives we live. We say one thing and practice the other. We live in a life of theater, and we pretend about so many things that even our most sincere and honest confessions are hard to decipher. Let us make manifest true meaning in believing in this country, Ghana, and we can make this country better than any other nation around the globe. It is not for nothing that this continent, we are a part of it, and that Ghana is placed at the heart of the world. The Greenwich Meridian and the equator, they only cross in Ghana, nowhere else in the world. It is not for nothing.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on now to the E-Levy. And yesterday it was passed at a rate of 1.5%, but not before the minority staged a walkout. And that was just when the bill was being considered for the second reading stage. So the minority had complained that it had been taken by surprise by the unexpected consideration of the levy. In fact, it was not listed in Parliament's business statement for this week. And so they staged a walkout and said they were not going to be part of a tax that will make life difficult, even more difficult for Ghanaians. Now, yesterday we heard from the minority leader in Parliament, and he says that this excitement over the passage of the E-Levy will be short-lived because they're heading to the Supreme Court to challenge its passage. The majority also had to organize a press conference yesterday explaining why it was necessary for the E-Levy to be passed. Let's just take a look at that briefly, and when we get back in the studios, we'll discuss.
This side, we don't support E-Levy. We will not support E-Levy. Count us out of it. They can proceed with whatever business they want to do. I thank you. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Wait, he's waving. The words of the right. Put the question. Put the question. Put the question. Mr. Speaker, put the question. My colleagues are in the chamber. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues are in the chamber. I invite you to put the question now. Put the question now. They are in the chamber. Put the question now. They are in the chamber. Put the question now. There be no further consideration, I propose to put the question on the whole motion. The
question is that those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
An act to impose a levy to be known as the electronic transfer levy on electronic transfers to enhance revenue mobilization by broadening the tax base and to provide for related matters.
Honorable members, the Electronic Transfer Levy Bill 2021 duly read the third time and passed.
The House has managed to pass the E-Levy bill. Indeed, and in truth, as the question was posed by a colleague from the minority when he insisted that the minority will stand with the people, we agree that we need to stand with our people. We represent constituents and will not abandon them. I think that given the circumstances of our times, where we are as a nation, given what is happening to the economy, the depreciation of the city, and the international developments, which is triggering escalation of prices on the local scene, we need not only to stand with the people of this country, but as well to stand with the state to ensure the viability of the republic, which is why I said to us the other day that whereas we recognize that it's important to start with the people may not get it right all the time, but the state remains the state, the republic remains the republic. So we have elected not only to stand with the people, but much more importantly, much more enduringly, to stand with the republic.
All right. Well, I was hoping that we could play the minority leader's engagements with the press as well, where he explained why there was a walkout in Parliament. And he says that, well, there was no quorum. So really, they don't understand why the E-Levy was passed, which is why they're heading to the Supreme Court to challenge this decision. I'll start off with Honorable Sam George to explain it. First of all, because Ghanaians are asking, I mean, if we all know that the majority did not have the numbers in Parliament, because clearly Honorable Adwoa Safo was not in Parliament. And also we're aware that even though there was an ambulance with the chieftaincy minister, maybe or possibly, he was not in the auditorium at the time. So why did you stage a walkout? Because you had even numbers in the chamber.
All right. I started this morning's submission by saying it was a mixed bag of emotions. It's been a tough evening, or tough 18 hours for me since we had to stage the walkout. My phone has been bombarded with messages and calls. I honestly am unable to respond to them. I get the sense that quite a number of people feel let down and feel that the minority may have betrayed a certain feeling. For me, two things span out of that. First and foremost is the fact that the people of Ghana have more faith and trust in the minority than they do have in their government to protect their wish. And that, for me, is a very good sign. That the people are not reposing their trust and faith in the government that's supposed to oversee the activities of state. They rather have trust and faith in the minority. And the second thing that it brings out for me is the fact that as a minority, it puts a lot of expectation on our shoulders, and our actions must be well thought out and calculated. I respect the decision of leadership that was taken yesterday. And I'm sure in the video that you played, you saw me impressing on my colleagues to stand up and move out with leadership. It was a tough one for leadership. Don't forget that we had been attacked by several people for being disruptive, for being violent, for fighting, all because of the emotional attachment that we had as a caucus to ensuring the E-Levy did not pass. We still hold the view that technically and legally the E-Levy has not passed. yes, I know and I understand and I agree to a large extent with those who say that it shouldn't be in our place to be wanting to go back to the Supreme Court, given the way the Supreme Court has conducted its business in the recent past. However, I think that it's up to the Supreme Court to discharge themselves and prove themselves with our writs that has been filed. Look, yes, we had 137.
Did you have 137
we had
or 136?
137 with a question mark hanging over one.
Yeah.
Now, leadership had to make the decision. There was an action underway to secure a stay of execution in Cape Coast. Now, leadership had to make that painful and tough decision of risking asking the Honorable James Jachikwason to come into the chamber at a time when we had not completed filing our stay of execution and subjecting him individually as one person to a possible contempt of parliament and contempt of court, which would be a criminal thing that would dangle on he alone and let him go down alone. Or for us to look at the alternative, which would then open all 137 of us to some of the criticism that we have faced in the past 18 hours. I support Parliament because if it was me, I would have expected the caucus to stand with me and not to put him up for personal jeopardy. And so we decided he shouldn't enter the chamber. That reduced our numbers to 136.
Okay.
The MPP on the other side has 138 when they deal with the independent candidate. Without Honorable Adjo Asafo, they had 137. So even at that position, you had 137 to 136. Now, the 137, there was the question mark of whether or not the ambulance had the chieftaincy minister. I mean, the information that was available to us as a caucus, not just leadership, was that he was in the ambulance. Okay. Now, people say, well, he wasn't in the ambulance at the time we walked out. When it comes to the vote, there's first and foremost a voice vote, after which there is going to have been a head count. He would only have been needed to be wheeled in for 2 minutes when it was his turn to take his vote, vote and go out. So you didn't want to take that risk of having a legitimate vote taken and then he being brought in and giving them the 137 and you having your 136. Okay. And so minority leadership had to take that decision. And it wasn't just a decision they took alone. It was a decision taken in consultation with the party. Let's state this for the records. This was not just MPs going rogue on their own. Because the parliamentary wing is a part of the party. We're not an independent wing. And so we hold the view that given the Supreme Court's ruling in Justice Abdullahi versus the Attorney General, and Kabila has the ruling, on page 19, the Supreme Court is quite clear and explicit in what its interpretation of Article 104 of the Constitution is. And here, this is what it says. It says that there is a second quorum provision found in Article 104.1. This provision applies specifically and exclusively to voting to determine a matter in Parliament. Article 104.1 provides as follows: except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority of members present and voting, with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. Now, the question is, why didn't you stay in and vote? If we had stayed in, you would have had the requirement in 104, which is with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. And if you read the Supreme Court, if you take the Supreme Court ruling, if your cameras could even pan in, you see that with at least half of all members of Parliament present is highlighted in bold by the Supreme Court.
Because they are lifting that from the...
I mean, they quote the whole provision from the Constitution, but that particular line is even given, is highlighted and made bolder.
Okay. If you can just point it to the camera.
Yes, I have it on the camera. I don't know if, yes. So you see, with at least half, that bit over there is bolder than the rest of the quotes. Okay. So it tells you how critical having half of all members of Parliament, and half of all members of Parliament will be 137.5, which is what you round off to 138.
138, yeah.
Good. Now, if we had stayed in the chamber, you'd have had this requirement met. And then whatever would have happened, because some of us were of the school of thought that stay and vote and then express your displeasure by moving out. But then you would have legitimized the vote and the whole case would have been lost. Now, what you have done is similar to what the NPP did on the 30th of November, when we said we were rejecting the budget. Their claim was that we were 137.
Yeah.
And because we did not meet this critical half, our actions were illegal. And they purported to come back the next Tuesday with the Deputy Speaker presiding and overturn that decision of Parliament. The Supreme Court seems to have agreed with them in its ruling. The Supreme Court agreed with them in that ruling. So what we have established as well is that that's why we've gone to the Supreme Court to say to the Supreme Court, you just told us this on the 9th of March, that you agreed with the position of the minority, of the majority, when they claimed that the actions of the minority in disapproving or rejecting the budget was not constitutional because we didn't have more than 1/2 of members present and voting quorum. Yesterday, if you had only 136 or 130 at the time, at the time the question was put, because Adjosafo was not present, the chieftaincy minister was not present. It's possible that there were other members who were not even present, because at the time I was walking through the corridor and at that time the question had been put, Carlos Ahinkra was now coming into the chamber. So again, at the time that question was put, Carlos was not in the chamber. So it then
but the question was put while you were walking out, and so you still had your numbers in the chamber, did you not?
Fantastic. I'm happy you've raised this. Now, let me tell you what. Voting in Parliament, when you vote in Parliament, a member must be in his seat to take part in the vote, not on the floor. You must be in your seat. Now, again, do not forget that before we rose and left, the minority leader, in wrapping up 3 times, if you play his submission, 3 times made it clear to the speaker that all 137 members of the minority will not be part of these proceedings. Now, there's antecedents to this. In 2009, when the STX motion was put before Parliament, then minority leader, Osei Mensah Bonsu, indicated that all minority members were going to walk out and not be part of the STX motion vote. The then minority chief whip, Frederick Opareansa, sat in the chamber. In his case, when the whole minority walked out, he sat in the chamber. And he sat in the chamber to do one thing, to raise the issue of quorum. When he rose to catch the eye of the speaker, he was challenged by the then majority whip, Alfred Agbesi, that he has no locus in the chamber. Because his leader had indicated that the caucus, the leader did not say I, he said the caucus was walking out of the chamber and not going to be part of the proceedings. There have been times PC Apia Ofori refused to walk out with the MPP group in Parliament, but he was not recognized by the speaker, because once your leader indicates to the person presiding that caucus is moving out, no member of the caucus remaining has any valid reason or would be recognized by the speaker.
So they cannot be counted individually?
No, because your leader has said 137. Play Honorable Haruna. He said all 137 members, and I'm making it clear, I'm leading my side, we will not take part in further proceedings. So that's the question he made. Now, even to make that case even more mundane and moot, the argument they are making, what question did they claim was put? The question on the motion for second reading. That was the question that was put. At the time, they claimed that there were about 5 members of the minority in there. Okay, fine. If there were 5 members and you even want to grant for the purposes of this conversation that they were present, the subsequent actions that were taken, the clause-by-clause amendment decisions that were made, was there any member there? Did they have the 138 in the chamber? The third reading, which is the critical approval stage, when that question was put, were there 138 members in there? So you realize that they really have no case to make. This whole argument about whether there were people still in the chamber, that wasn't the final question. There were at least 4 or 5 other questions put. There were amendments that were filed. There was a third consideration stage that went through. Did they have members? Did they have 138? Those are the critical questions the Supreme Court will have to examine and determine. For those who may feel hurt, I understand and I appreciate your hurt. And I can only tell you one thing. You've trusted the minority. You've trusted the MPs. We have kept faith with you. And I think that if there's anyone to feel the ire of the people, anyone to face the brunt of the anger of the people, it is President Akufo-Addo and his finance minister and the majority MPs who introduced the E-Levy.
And not you, because you had assured Ghanaians that you were going to fight to the end,
and we fought,
to ensure that E-Levy is not passed. In this case, E-Levy has been passed. We have fought
to the end, and we are still fighting, because as far as we're concerned, this battle is not over.
You walked out, and Ghanaians are saying that was not good enough. You should have stayed and fought.
Staying to fight would have brought finality to the matter yesterday. The matter is not final. The matter has gone to the Supreme Court. A writ has been filed, so it means that the minority is still fighting. Why are we
Supreme
not?
Court that you don't trust in their judgment?
So it's up to the Supreme Court to distinguish themselves.
But you don't trust in their judgment. Why are you going back to the same people that you don't trust?
So Bella, what are you saying? I mean, we have our issues with the Supreme Court. Yes, we won't run away from it. Okay, I still think that this ruling of the Supreme Court is absurd.
But you're quoting,
and that is why we are going back to them on the strength of the absurdity of their ruling, for them to see the quagmire they've thrown this country into, and to give them an opportunity to extricate themselves from the absurdity they have plunged this country into. You understand me? And so, for me, let no one
land on this one, please.
Let no one shift responsibility. This bill, this E-Levy, was not introduced by the NDC. It is not the NDC's making. We must blame the persons who are responsible for this obnoxious bill. It is the NPP and the NDC. And yesterday, when the bill was passed, when they claimed they had passed it, you saw the faces of the NPP MPs. Why weren't they celebrating? You saw how they looked like people who had just been told about the death of their mother. They failed because even the NPP MPs in Parliament tell us the difficulties they are going to face with the passage of this bill.
What are the difficulties?
Their constituents are waiting for them.
Okay.
Their constituents told them they didn't want it.
Let me bring Charles in. Well, your constituents were told as well that you would fight to the end, and you failed your constituents. That's what your constituents say.
I disagree with you when you say I failed my constituents.
That's what your constituents are saying.
That's not what my constituents are saying.
What are they saying? Did you read the messages even on social media?
And that's what I'm saying. People are fine. It's fine for people to express their difficulties and challenges. It is my responsibility and the responsibility of the minority to explain the strategy of what we've done. And that's what I've done here. To say that the battle is not over. It's moved to the courts. We're asking the Supreme Court to distinguish itself on the basis of what it said. How many days ago? Today is what, 30th?
So
21 days ago. 21 days ago. He said that on the 9th.
That's come by so fast.
Yes.
Okay.
3 weeks ago. Exactly.
Let me bring Charles in. So you didn't have the numbers to form the quorum, and yet E-Levy has been passed. Minority says they're challenging it.
Okay. Yesterday I heard something through the grapevine that we're in this quagmire because of the NDC, and it was coming from within their ranks, the NDC. You see, when the leader asked them to walk out, I saw some George, trying to marshal his people out. And some of them were sitting. I think we just watched that. So it tells you that they were not even ready to actually hold this country to ransom.
Is that what it says?
Yes. Somebody told me.
Okay.
Okay.
That they were not willing to walk out.
Exactly. So we saw some George trying to marshal them out and all that, and they were not ready to walk out. And so that question of forming a quorum, what I heard was that when the question was posed, there were a few of them in there, so there was a majority. And from the narration of the Speaker of Parliament, he said that you must be present in the chamber when the question is posed. I stand to be corrected. So I think they are going to the Supreme Court. That did not believe in. They've been chastising them of late. Let's wait and see. The other thing is that I think that they're misleading their supporters.
How so?
Okay. In the 2020 elections, the NDC, following the declaration of the results, went to court and with no evidence. Unlike in 2013, when we went to court with about 1,700 pink sheets as exhibits of what the infractions that we were talking about, and juxtaposing that to 2020. I remember in 2020 when they went to court around this the EC stretch of road, the Nima overpass. I and my friend the barber were driving around, and we saw a lot of young people walking back towards Nima, and we asked them where they were coming from, and they said they've been at the EC premises all day, but there was no leadership of the NDC there, and they've been misled. So applying that to what is happening with this E-Levy thing, I believe that they just actually, because I always say that we are in the second term of a two-term government where the constitution allows a president to run for 2 terms and not a political party. And so we need to actually buoy our people, motivate them that we're doing something. And that's exactly what they're doing. Because the E-Levy itself, from day one, they've tried to make a caricature of it, that the E-Levy is a monster. Because if the speaker has said that we are going to lose the 2024 elections if the E-Levy is passed, I think that's our responsibility, that we go and lose. For me, I would have wished that it would have been a benefit to the NDC that if the E-Levy is passed, then MPP will lose, and then the NDC will come to power. Because from their conduct over the past 3 years, anything that has gone, it's going to go down well with this country, the NDC has opposed it.
And E-Levy is one of those?
Yes.
That will go down well?
Yes, because now it's within our court as the New Patriotic Party to ensure the judicious use of revenue accrued. And we have 2.5 years to do that. So I would wish they come out with alternatives and say that, okay, you are going for this route, we want the other route.
They did come up with alternatives. I remember that Honorable Sam Okudzeto Ablakwa listed about 10 or 11 alternatives, expenditure cuts and all that, by which we could even raise more than the 6.9 billion that we're expected to raise from E-Levy.
But that speaks for itself. When following COVID, the Ukraine war, where Russia produces about 10 million barrels a day, and so the fuel crisis has hit the globe itself, and so each country, you have to look within yourself and then actually review your economy, and that is what is happening everywhere in this world. So if we decide to come out with cuts, I don't think it's rocket science what some Okudzeto Ablakwa was telling us, because that was bound to happen. Because following COVID, you were actually not producing, but you were paying salaries. Free SHS and other expenditures were being actually adhered to. So following that, you would always find yourself, the economy in recession. And then you look within yourself and actually bring, cogent or compelling strategies that would actually revive the economy. For example, when the president said that he can never bring lives back, but he can always bring the economy back. When he said that, I knew he anticipated something, because following when COVID came in, a pandemic, which the NDC are saying that we shouldn't actually be mentioning, but it is a fact that COVID, a pandemic, which is a force majeure. When the finance minister was actually reading the budget, he never anticipated what COVID. The president in the State of the Nation's address never anticipated COVID. That happened. Within that, what do? You have to actually manage your economy well.
But introducing new taxes, is that not too much for Ghanaians? Because, again, it makes it look as if you're not paying attention to the regular Ghanaian who's saying, I do not have enough money to even pay E-Levy. A lot of Ghanaians have decried that decision by government to pass the E-Levy. And so if you've gone ahead to pass it at a point when we have not even exhausted all the 16 regions where we said we're going to get closer to the people and explain to them exactly what E-Levy was and how beneficial it would be to us. We've done just about 3 or 4 of these regions, and yet we've gone ahead to pass the E-Levy.
Bella,
do we care about the Ghanaians?
Bella, I do not have precedence of any tax that is being introduced where we've had town hall meetings. We evolve as human beings. Whenever we're doing, there should be innovation. Yes, our communication strategy might be wrong. We could have actually gone out, educate people on it before it's coming out. But then we'd never anticipated that the NDC will make a caricature of it. So maybe we took our eye off the ball based on precedents where we found oil in commercial quantities when they said it was cooking oil. Free SHS, they said it was not going to come to fruition. It's going to fail, and that a lot of teenage pregnancy was going to be on the high. And when COVID came in, they said they anticipated that a lot of people would die, which was manageable. So for the opposition, they always preach doom as a way of actually finding their way at the helm of our political affairs. So for me, yes, maybe our strategy was wrong, but it is never too late. So then the finance minister comes out and goes out to say, okay, they've made a caricature of this, so let us go out there and educate our people. by doing that, you've actually done half of it, and you believe that it's, if we're not sure of what we're doing, then we stop halfway and say, or wait till all the 16 regions have been done. But we're not sure of actually accruing revenue and actually spending them judiciously. For me, as I said here, in 2024, if E-Levy is not used judiciously, I would have failed. What am I going to tell our constituents? What am I going to tell Ghanaians in campaign? So I would task my government to ensure that we use it judiciously. But on the question of Parliament having quorum, I believe that it is something that is interesting. For me, what is happening in Parliament now, even though I'm not too happy, it is testing our democracy, where we have 137, 137. The framers of the Constitution maybe never anticipated this. So with laws, we evolve. So I think following this, I think we're actually going to carve our laws and all that, to actually suit the trends of affairs. So I think it's an interesting situation. But for us, I believe we're running a country. Whilst we're running this country, we believe that things that we know to the benefit of the average Ghanaian must be adhered to. And then the difficulty that we're facing across the whole world, Ghana is not an exception. For example, cost of freight, it's tripled. And we do not have ships and all that. It's coming from another country. And your trading partner has increased the cost of freight. What are you going to do? That would actually impact on your economy. We are net importers of oil, most of our goods. You understand? That is why the government came in with the 1D, 1F, where we are going industrialization. And that
but even all those ones, not to cut you, we've been told that we need to review. When you listen to industry players, they tell you that review One District, One Factory, Free SHS, review all your other flagship programs as well.
So what's the, we're using the operative word, review. You'll be a bad manager not to review anything that you're doing. So if they're saying that we should review it, yes, because it was a new thing that came into our system, the free SHS and all that. Whatever you do as a manager, at any point in time, you need to sit down and say, do an introspection and say whether it is going right or wrong. So I agree with them, and the government will do that.
Okay, but if you're saying look within, and I'll actually this one before I go to Kabila, I know that Dr. Sarkodie is also on standby on Zoom. So let's talk about tax exemptions, and that could have been a way of raising more revenue instead of passing the E-Levy. And the finance minister himself had said it last week when he addressed us on expenditure cuts and what we could do. And he said that as part of trying to also generate more revenue, we'll see if Parliament, or we'll try and see if Parliament can pass E-Levy and also pass the tax exemptions bill so that we can make some money. IMF says that back in 2011, it cost the government or Ghana $2.4 billion to give tax exemptions. 2013, we lost $2.5 billion. And now they're telling us that we could raise about 20 to $25 billion, Ghana cedis actually, of our revenue if we pass the bill. Why are we not giving this priority instead of going ahead and passing the E-Levy that will generate maybe even less than the 6.9 billion Ghana cedis?
You see, we are looking at industrialization. The IMF is telling us this. It depends on the area that they're talking of. Is it to do with foreign direct investment that we are looking at cutting tax exemption, but where we have every 5 years a company comes into our system, and then within that, after 5 years, they fold and then form another company, where we have other countries where they give about 10 years tax exemption and all that, because the foreign direct investment itself is a market. Whatever you do to attract them into your country, it's up to you, but they all work within the same market. Now, for me, if we're going to do tax exemption, and let's choose 1D, 1F, for example, where the government pays the interest rate, the government pays 50%, okay, and then the investor also takes 50%. Import duty on machinery is taken off. If we impose tax exemptions, we impose it, the bill comes in, and we start imposing taxes on machinery coming in, or technical transfer coming into this country, we've stalled our industrialization drive. Ghana Beyond Aid would have failed. So we would actually look at that and say, okay, let's maintain that. But we look at other areas where foreigners come in, an example, 5 years, they form a company and then they fold. And then within that, our own people, Ghanaians, actually go into that and then help them do that. Is it to do with that formalization and digitalization of the economy? Is that going to solve the problem? So there are a host of things that we're looking at. So yes, I agree on tax exemption, but it depends on what the IMF is saying. They should actually be specific on the areas. It's not coming out saying vague things, and then the NDC takes that and then runs away with it. Because if we're looking at increasing import duties in the future, and yet we have not actually boosted our industrialization drive, then would have failed.
Okay, let me bring Kabila in to speak on this matter and the whole E-Levy saga, because at this point, Ghanaians are saying that both minority and majority have failed us. Majority failed us by passing the E-Levy when we said we did not want it. Minority said they were going to fight till the end to ensure that it is not passed, and they walked out. Of course, Sam George has explained why the minority decided to walk out. But earlier, you had said that you were happy that the E-Levy had been passed. Why?
And I'm a Ghanaian. And I am a Ghanaian. Unfortunately, you are making an emphatic statement here that Ghanaians say they are not happy. Which Ghanaians did you talk to?
Are Ghanaians not saying they are not happy
I
about
am happy with it. Am I not a Ghanaian?
But there are Ghanaians who are also saying they don't want it.
Have you put that to question?
But we have seen... No, but are Ghanaians not also saying they don't want it?
So you see, Bella, my point is this. We have not exhausted a study to establish the number of Ghanaians who are for or against this. To that extent, it is wrong for you to make a conclusive statement that Ghanaians say they are not happy.
Then it is wrong also for the Deputy Finance Minister to say that they have also found out that Ghanaians actually want the E-Levy to be passed. But what they don't know,
of course,
what Ghanaians don't want is, or what they're asking for is, how they're going to also expend that money that they're going to raise.
Of course.
Are they also wrong to make that statement?
Exactly the point. And I want to be consistent. If I am saying you are wrong for concluding without a study, without a conclusion of numbers, that Ghanaians or majority of Ghanaians are saying this, and they have made a similar statement, they are equally wrong. But Bella, I am not here for that debate because it is needless. What do I say is needless? This is our national constitution, 1992. This constitution was voted on 28th of April 1992. Bella, the preamble to this constitution reads, in the name of the Almighty God, we, the people of Ghana. It was not every Ghanaian who voted in 1992, number one. Two, even Ghanaians who were of the adult population of universal adult suffrage, who could vote and were on the voter register, were not, the entirety were not the ones that voted. Yet, this constitution says, we the people, and every Ghanaian is bound by it. What is my point? We are governed by rules, and our rule says that where the majority decision goes, that is where we go. My brother Sam George knows, and it is tried a cliche in Parliament that the minority may have their say, the majority will have their way. There's a reason for it. The reason is that we have accepted as human beings that because we have differences, but we want to establish and work with rules, where the majority will stand today, that is where it will prevail. Tomorrow, if the position changes and the majority thinks the other way, that will be the new 10. And you must know this, that democracies are not theocracies. They are not feelings, they are not perceptions, they are not emotions. They are about numbers.
Okay.
Listen to the submission of my brother Sam George. And he ended the debate for me. He ended it.
How did he end
My
it?
brother Sam George says that they, acting with reason and caution, stayed their single member of parliament who is in dispute out of parliament. That reduced the number of parliament to 274 and not 275. My contention. They may argue differently in Supreme Court. Me, I sit here and I'm saying that per the decisions of court and the practice of parliament, the number of members of parliament yesterday was 274 and not 275. That makes half of that number 137. Again, my brother Sam George, excellently admitting here the presence of that member people felt was unwell in parliament, and that.
Please,
hold on. You said you had people had issues, but you would believe, your leadership believed that he was present.
No, that's not what I said. No, Bella,
No.
please.
Okay,
I don't want you to
Let him just
say
correct
exactly
what I said was there was information that the chieftaincy minister was present in the ambulance.
That's right.
Nobody had seen him.
That's
but the ambulance is not a chamber of parliament.
Yeah.
That's right.
So don't say that I said our leadership had. They are two different things.
Okay.
So you were aware of his presence and that.
No.
But he was not in the chamber.
You heard So you were aware. I say you heard, you were aware. I'm not saying you confirmed it.
Yeah.
But you were aware that he was present and that you gave the fiat that perhaps the only temptation where you would have been, there would have been the question to prove whether he was indeed in the ambulance or not was if the question of identifying the members of parliament present for the division had been necessary. You said that one here.
Absolutely.
Which it didn't have to come to that. And again, some judge makes the argument that when he was leaving the chamber, meaning he was in the chamber, and it was not just him, there were many others of their minority side in the chamber when they were leaving, and you said Honorable Carlos Ahinkra
walked in.
was yet walking
in.
in. The fact of the matter is that Parliament has got cameras. We can always establish the number of members in the chamber.
For the meeting,
for the meeting,
but not for the decision making.
I'm saying what at every level, whether the quorum, the decision, which at every time of proceedings in Parliament, it is captured on screen. And we can easily, empirically establish that there were so and so number of members of Parliament there. I am happy that they have gone U-turn and have accepted that in this constitutional exercise, the only last remit is the Supreme Court, and they are going there.
But even before the Supreme Court, let me just ask this one, because Honorable Joe Osei-Owusu could not have the E-Levy even passed with 137, and yet he was part of the 136 that actually were in Parliament and passed it. Again, the question of quorum and the fact that...
What you said?
No, sorry, what I'm asking is that he could not reject the budget even with the 137. And yet, we have 136. And they said it was wrong. And I'll quote something that Kojo Ponkuma had said. Hold on. Let me just quote something that Kojo said.
No, your premise is wrong.
Hold on. Let me ask the question.
I'm making the point, and
No, I'm asking you a question. Okay?
Go ahead.
So, even on the 30th of November, 2021, I remember that Honorable Kojo Osei-Nkrumah had said that there was no way. Kojo Ponkuma had said that the Speaker explained two rules that must be regarded for a quorum. One of them is the fact that there was 138 members in Parliament. But does the fact that Joe Osei sits in the Speaker's seat mean that he's lost his membership in the House? No. Okay, so the majority had said in the past that there was no way that you could form a quorum without having 138. And yet, in this case, majority did not have that 138. They only had 136. And they're still arguing that they still could go ahead and pass the 1.5%
What it means is that
E-Levy.
you have not even listened to me. You are not listening to me. I'm saying that the issue of quorum, I am saying that they had quorum. If anybody contests and debates that, it can be settled because there's empirical evidence.
But some judge said it.
Hold on.
That once your leader is out, you cannot count the minority as part of the quorum.
Please.
They did not have the numbers.
Please, it doesn't lie in the mouth of some judge to sit on this set to say there was no quorum.
Okay, it lies in the Constitution. Did they have 138? No.
Hold on, please. Bella, I'm saying that I believe that they had 137, not 138. I have told you here that per his submission, the members of Parliament yesterday required were 274, not 275. That's enough, MP. It's not. As we speak now, per the pending decision of the court, it hasn't been overturned. He said they are in the process of filing processes to stay the execution, isn't it? Until that stay, it's not even enough to file the stay of execution. It must be moved and granted.
But the Speaker has not declared his seat vacant.
Hold on. Please, I'm saying that if I am arguing that per what we have now, there's members of Parliament, if you want to look at the numbers on the face of it, should be 274 and not 275. If somebody questions that, they are in the Supreme Court to argue that. Two, I'm saying that 137 is half of 274. If somebody says that the number of members of Parliament were less than 137, they have the right to go to Supreme Court as they have gone, and they will argue it there. I am telling you that from what information I have, the members of Parliament present to form quorum and for the question to be put were more than 137. It includes some of them. And I'm saying that if anybody contests that, there is empirical basis to argue that at the right forum, which is the Supreme Court, and I'm happy they have gone there finally. So, you see, we can't choose which rules to apply or to adopt when it suits us and which to throw away when it doesn't. We have a democracy. A democracy does not mean that you are right because you are in the majority. Get me? I'm saying that being in the majority does not mean that you are right. In this sense, we are talking about the majority rule, not the right rule per se. The majority could be wrong, but we have accepted that that is the way to go to bring end to processes. Somebody has given the ruling, and you listen to the speaker. The speaker sitting in the chair ruled that the E-Levy bill had been passed. Somebody is questioning by what they are filing. They are questioning the constitutionality of the ruling by the speaker. They have a right to do that. And I'm saying that they have come to accept the consistent position we have adopted previously, that this parliament is not sovereign. 2, it's a master of its own rules, but not the repository over the constitutionality or otherwise of its rules.
Okay.
And that is why you must go to the Supreme Court where it need be. They have not come to accept that position. We are happy. It's good for our democracy. More to this is the fact that Samjot made an important statement that I must not let go unchecked. He said they in the minority did what they did in Parliament yesterday in consultation with their party. True? He said that here. True. They ran on the ticket of their parties. But it is we, the constituents they represent. Their respect was to consult their party. But my MP, Honorable Jakala, didn't feel need to come to Kintamponov to consult me, the constituent. That is their amount of respect for the Ghanaian.
But the majority does it too, do they not?
Please.
Do they not do it too?
Bella. I have raised issues about members of parliament in general. How they vote vis-a-vis consultations with their constituents. We are not doing a general argument here. I'm dealing with a specific issue that a member of parliament from the minority side is saying to justify their claim that they have majority of the people behind them, which I put here is a lie, and I'll show you how.
It's a lie.
Yes. If we are going by the simple mathematical calculation that each of the MPs are representing members of their constituencies, take their number, even 137, which is now 136, and take each of them with aggregate votes, how many people they represent in this country. They are in less of 531,000 Ghanaians than the majority side. Who has majority of Ghanaians on their side? Who? Tell me.
But if that's the case,
no. Who has? By this number.
Hold on.
So I'm proving to you that when somebody sits here and say that majority of Ghanaians are on their side without a study, and we want to work with what there is the baseline, which is the people, the constituents you represent, you are factually incorrect.
So should we also not hold the majority leader to this same level of, scrutiny? Because again, he is the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, right?
Bella.
Why is it that, and the leader of public business, why is it that he also did not ensure that even before E-Levy is brought back to Parliament, all 16 regions would have seen the finance minister and the entire team going there to explain to Ghanaians, because they represent the constituents.
Bella,
at the end of the day, why did they not go to all the 16 regions to ensure that everyone has been told about E-Levy and what it stands to gain or not gain before going back to Parliament?
When we talk about Parliament, we are not even talking about regional matters. It's a constituency-based issue.
Of course, but then he's the head of government business.
Hold on. You are making a point I have made superfluous. I have made this point that I have issues with the practice of Parliament in general. So you are belaboring the point.
But if you are calling out the minority, that is why I'm also making this statement, just for principle.
Bella, let's differentiate the issues. He is making the point that they have majority of Ghanaians on their side. Didn't he say that? I'm saying that.
even without conducting a study to show that he is wrong. On the face of it, the number of people, the constituents that they represent, fall short of the number of constituents the majority represent. That's what I'm saying. It's a different level of argument. But as for the deficit in parliamentary practice vis-a-vis constituency consultations, it's a general problem that we take parliament on the whole. But this one, I'm dealing with a specific matter, that he is making a false claim that they have majority of Ghanaians on their side, when on the face of it, you are in a minority. And your numbers show that you are in a minority.
So if the majority should have the numbers, then why did they also not consult the numbers that they are supposed to have?
Bella, listen to my argument well. You don't seem to be following me. I'm saying that by the rules of democracy, it's majority rule, not so. Somebody is saying that the majority of Ghanaians are against E-Levy because they are against E-Levy. First, I dealt with the claim that if his leader says that they are against it, it doesn't mean that it will be recorded in parliament that an MP who is sitting in his seat will not be recognized. That is unconstitutional. That's unconstitutional. That's unconstitutional. Your leader says, Master, that is why in parliament they say that the minority may have their say, the majority will have their way.
Okay.
Because it is not just about talking.
It does not pertain in a hang parliament, by the way.
It is about voting.
Exactly.
Making your vote count. In fact, that's a critical part, and the Supreme Court makes that succinctly clear here. That bottom line, the whole of parliamentary practice and debate boils down to voting. That is why they say that you can't deny the first deputy speaker his right to vote because he has become first deputy speaker.
Okay.
It was on the premise of that. So you see, Bella, let's sum this up this way. The burden of democracy is fidelity to the law. A decision has been taken. It is binding. If parliament, some members of parliament, some individual Ghanaians feel, and this is not about emotions, if they are convinced that there was something untoward in terms of parliamentary practice, the Hansard is here, the standing orders are here, the national constitution is here, Article 113, if they think there's any breach, as the Supreme Court said, they only decided to enter that parliamentary matter because on page 9 of their decision, there were contestations about interpretations of Article 102 and 104. And when some judge disagrees with me, and I disagree with him, the most right forum or appropriate forum to go for resolution or arbitration is the Supreme Court. That is why they seized the opportunity to enter this matter and give judgment. They have done it. Somebody thinks that what happened yesterday is a violation of this decision. I think what happened in Parliament is rather an enforcement of what happened in the Supreme Court.
An enforcement.
Let them go to the Supreme Court. Plead with the justices what their case is. And let's see what the decision would be. However, caution, just as he cautioned, we should not turn round. Like President Mahama is speaking in the US and saying that they went to the Supreme Court with claims of rigged elections when in fact it was to deal with the sentiments, parochial sentiments of their members who were angry. Let that not be your U-turn when you have been flawed again in the Supreme Court.
And again, just before I bring in Dr. Sarkodie, I'll ask you again. So if we're talking about a research to indicate if minority had the numbers on their side, which is why they're saying Ghanaians do not accept the E-Levy, did the majority MPs in Parliament also go and consult their constituents before voting for the E-Levy? Because if they have stamped... if they have proven... Okay, if they've approved the E-Levy, that means that they're speaking for their constituents who say they want the E-Levy. Where's the study to also back that?
I said that they haven't done that.
Exactly.
I have done that.
Okay,
so
let me bring... No, I'm just saying you're holding... Listen, you're holding the minority to principle. And I just wanted you to also admit then that then the majority also did not do what was right.
Parliament on its whole, Parliament, has a deficit in that practice.
Okay.
Let
me bring, sorry, Charles, please let me bring Dr. Sarkodie in. He's been on the line for over 45 minutes now. We apologize. I know you have to go somewhere. But let me know what your thoughts are on this whole matter, the E-Levy. I mean, there were calls for government to go to the IMF instead of passing the E-Levy. But you had said that if we're prudent in our spending, then there will not be a need for us to go to the IMF. Now the E-Levy has been passed. Was that the right thing to do?
Well, first of all, I have been following discussions and debates about the E-Levy, and it has taken too much of a partisanship position, and I have not seen any MPP MP interrogate the bill and bring out the, the goals, the bars in the bill. I have not also heard an NDC MP who has given the indication that if A, B, C, D are added or deducted from the bill, he will support it. So it looks like all MPP MPs have passed it and all NDC MPs have rejected it. And that does not sit well with the economic debate. The issue I'm raising is that when there's an issue to be discussed like the E-Levy, it must be isolated and debated or discussed. The argument should be based on the bill. We have also heard people who are saying that, well, it's going to bring hardship. The monies that we have given to you, you haven't spent it wisely. Why are you coming for new monies? These, in my view, are all external factors that can be dealt with. But the interrogation of the bill, to me, hasn't gone that far. That said, what is the economist saying about the E-Levy? I have written an article on this. It's available online on the conversations.com. Using economic principles, my position is that incomes must be taxed. Labor and non-labor incomes, even gifts, must be taxed. If you have 10 million Ghanaians who are working and only 2.3 million are paying income tax, and the remaining 7.7 million are not paying income tax, something must be done. The service sector takes about 52% of GDP and about 43% of employment. And if you want an area to tax and get revenue, it must be the service sector. The IT, the telecommunications subsector of the service sector is one of the fastest growing subsectors of the economy. So it should be properly assessed and taxed. And so the whole reason for the E-Levy is that the government wants revenue. The revenue growth rate, or that is the speed with which revenue increases, was as high as 52% in the year 2011, obviously, because we started producing oil. And this growth rate, domestic growth rate, has fallen from 52% in 2011 to just 4% in 2020. But we know that in 2020 is because of the COVID. But what was the record before COVID? 19%. So, 11%. So even if you take away the effect of COVID, you are falling from 52% to 11%. This one, I'm not talking about the tax revenue GDP ratio. Okay. I'm talking about the rate with which revenue increases. Because the reason I want to dwell so much on the tax revenue is that you can always rebase and the ratio will fall, and you might think you're not doing well. So since we finished the HIPIC initiative, up to this point, the growth rate of borrowing has outpaced the growth rate of revenue. And as a country, a middle income country that wants to develop, this is not the path that you want to take. And so whatever is necessary for government to raise enough domestic resource to finance its expenditure must be done. We cannot continue to borrow at any rate. The current debt GDP ratio is alarming. It has put the country in a debt distress position. Not that alone, the debt service burden on revenue is close to 70%. It's also putting rigidities in the budget. And so there's every reason for the government to embark on aggressive or intensive domestic resource mobilization. Now, my view on the E-Levy is that This is a necessity in the short term.
Okay.
This is put in the budget, and it had to be passed because our sovereign bond or the economy was downgraded by the credit rating agencies because of the government's inability to pass the revenue measures contained in the budget. So in the short term, the government is just demonstrating this to win the confidence and the support of the international community, so that just to tell them that we have been able to pass our budget. So if we want to have access to your market, please have access, give us access to the market. Why is it needed in this short term? Because government upon governments have tried to shore up the cedi either by borrowing externally so that you get inflow of foreign reserves, and or deplete the international reserves. And the depletion of the international reserves at this point is non-negotiable. It shouldn't be touched. I'm sorry. It should not. They shouldn't even go there. Why? Because there is so much uncertainty in the global economy that no country at this point wants to deplete its international reserves. And so the next option, which is a short-term option, is to go and borrow externally. And the government needed this E-Levy so they could have access to the international capital market and bring in inflow of forex to save the depreciation of the cedi, which is also causing inflation and transport fares and all other things following. And that is how it seems almost everything in the economy is linked to the E-Levy. It is not because of the revenue which is expected to be generated from the revenue, from the bill, but it's because of what the passage can do to getting the inflow of forex and then saving the cedi in the short term. I am not so much enthused about these measures which have been initiated by, NDC, MPP. I know Honorable Sam George is there, so I'm saying that in your time you did the same. During President Mills and President Mohamed, you did the same. You tackled the issue on the surface. And there was a need for the government to pass the bill. And in my article, I stated it that the E-Levy had to be passed with a sense of urgency. And I wrote this article about 6 weeks ago, and I'm happy that it is passed because it will solve most of the problems that the country is facing in the short term. In the long term, it is expected to also add to revenue. We've heard of about 6.9. Of course, the first quarter is almost over, so we might be talking about just a little over 6 billion. So around 6 billion or 5 point something. So let's assume 6 billion. So you have added about 6 billion or a little less than $1 billion to your revenue, which is applauded. My issue with this is that what about the other sources of revenue? I'm talking about the short-term measure. So I've already dealt with the short-term measure. I'm saying that it was necessary for the government to pass it. And then in the medium term, I'm saying that it is also necessary for us to up our game in terms of domestic revenue generation. And the government needed this to add revenue to the revenue stock. But there are other sources that I haven't seen the government pay that much attention to, if indeed you are serious about getting revenue, if indeed. Because the energy with which they went to the town hall meeting to convince Ghanaians to accept the bill, which I agree, they should exert the same energy on the property rate. They should exert the same energy on passing the tax exemptions. The tax exemptions bill has been on the floor of Parliament since 2019.
Yes, exactly, which is what I was asking.
Where is the energy? Yes.
Which is what I was asking, Charles, not to cut you, sorry, sir, but which is what I was asking, Charles, that, of course, you've explained why in the short term E-Levy needed to be passed so that we can bring in some forex. But if we had also paid that much attention to the tax exemptions bill, could that not have done more for us than passing the E-Levy immediately?
It could have. It depends on what you put in your budget. I was making reference to the international community. You put something in your budget, they interrogate the budget. So it looked like the E-Levy was an easy way for the government to get to the market. The government felt the tax exemptions could delay, or it could not be passed, or they could not realize their revenues in the short term. The E-Levy seems to be very easy and more guaranteed because they know the volume of transactions. and I have heard that it's now close to 1 trillion Ghana cedis. The volume of mobile money transactions close to 1 trillion, not billion, not million, trillion Ghana cedis. And so it looks like they have the calculation, and it's very easy. If they passed it yesterday, they implement it today, they know how much they'll get tomorrow.
Okay.
So it's that certainty is there. The exemptions bill may take some time because you need to do the cost benefit analysis, because the exemptions bill, exemptions are given for particular reasons. And so if you want to abolish it, you must assess the situation and see the cost to the economy, because it was given for a certain purpose.
Okay. Well, yeah.
And if you are asking...
Carry on. I think we're having challenges. Yeah, okay. Go on, sir. Doc, can you hear us? I think Doc is having challenges with his internet. Let me just go to Honorable Sam George to respond to a myriad of issues that have been raised by Charles, by Kabila, and also by Doc. So Doc is explaining why, in the short term, we need the E-Levy. So we should not look... Okay, I think he's back. Let me just let him land on this point so we can continue. Doc, you're welcome back. You were making a point earlier. Carry on.
I was making the point that the other sources of revenue may take time, may take like 6 months to 1 year or 2 years before it will come into full operation. But it looks like, as for the E-Levy, it's guaranteed.
Okay.
They can really easily access the inflow of revenue.
Okay.
But we don't need to sleep as a country. They should pay attention to the other sources. Property tax. Look at the number of property that we have in the country. If you work in the informal sector and you are not able to pay income tax, obviously one day you'll build a house, and that you cannot escape. So that is why that we should not cry so much foul about our inability to collect income taxes from the informal sector, because those working in the informal sectors will by all means put up property.
Okay.
And so then we go there and tax their property. And it must be done in the shortest possible time, maybe a year. By 6 months, 1 year, maximum 2 years time, we should have a huge inflow into our coffers from the property tax. Then the natural resources is a long-term solution. I was involved in the research about the natural resources, and the conclusion is that if we behave like Botswana and Nigeria and command, if our participation interest currently is about 16%, if it is increased from 16% to 55% like Botswana and Nigeria, Ghana government will get close to $5 billion every year. $5 billion every year to our public finance if we behave like Botswana and Nigeria and command 55% of the participation interest. And this is the statistics, Bella.
Okay.
It will interest you to know that between 2011 and 2018, that's about 8-year period, only 2011 and 2018. The economic rent, now the economic rent is the economist's way of calculating profit. It is not the way accountants calculate profit, because accountants do not include what we call the opportunity cost of capital. And so economists, when they are calculating their profit, they include the opportunity cost of capital. So it means that the economist's profit is always less than the accountant's profit. But even with this low profit, look at the figure. Between 2011 and 2018, the economic rent, that is the profit calculated by an economist, from the extractive sector in the country, Ghana, amounted to $43 billion, not cedis, $43 billion. Even if we had half, of course, you know, when we were young, we had this game called NCNC, no contribution, no chop. So we could not command a greater share of the profit because we did not contribute to the investment. And so the investment is given to you based on your participation interest of 16%. And that profit, we get only 10.4%. 10.4% of 43 billion. So 10% of 43 billion is 4.3 billion. So just around 4.5 billion for 8-year period. We got $4.5 billion out of $43 billion in 8 years. It's a shame to this country. If you are the first producer of gold in Africa and you are number 6 in the world, and now because of Russia-Ukraine war, many investments are moving to the purchase of gold. If you are the first producer of gold in Africa and you are getting just 10.4% of the profit in your country, it's a shame on us.
Okay.
We must do something about this. Now, half of 43 billion is $21 billion. And you know what? All the Eurobonds market, the loans that we have contracted from the Eurobond market are about 15 billion. 15 billion, less than the 21 billion that we could have gained from the extractive sector.
Okay.
If this country in the long term, in the next 3 to 5 years, if this country wants to grow and transform and get revenue, it is not about E-Levy, it is not about property. Of course, they will bring in their own share, but I'm saying that the game changer is the extractive sector.
Okay.
Look at the royalties paid by the gold miners, just 5%. This is an insult to the economy of Ghana.
Thank you.
5%. It was even 3%, and it was raised to 5% in the year 2011. And since then, nothing has been done about the royalties. We cannot sit down for some people to come. Look, when we sit down on the table and negotiate with them, they will listen to us.
Okay.
Because we have the reserves and they need our money. They have taken $43 billion profit from us. And so we must go back and sit with them and negotiate.
All right, Doc.
Rewrite the scripts, renegotiate even the existing contracts,
okay,
and
Doc,
going forward, get a participation interest.
All right.
So
Thank you so much.
The revenues.
Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you. Thank you. Let me come to Honorable Sam George to respond to this. Well, he says that, well, it's not the E-Levy we need at the moment, but he also explained why the E-Levy had to be passed, in the short term, because that is how we'll be able to pump some forex into our economy. What do you say?
Well, I respect Doc's position, but respectfully disagree with some of the things he said. I mean, E-Levy is not going to pump forex into our local economy. E-Levy is a local tax. It's taking in cedis. And so I don't see how E-Levy is going to be a driver of forex, FX into.
But he explained, and I'm sure you heard what he said, that of course at this point we also should be able to generate our own revenue, and that way we can go back to the market and ask for some more money to show up our economy.
You see,
and so if we're able to generate, then that's good enough.
You see, but Doc himself would attest to the fact that the international markets are not going to react to a levy like E-Levy as showing growth or stability in your local economy, because first and foremost, the international market knows that countries where E-Levy has been introduced have seen a drop in the use of digital money platforms. And so already in the first 3 months of this year, even without the E-Levy being passed, the usage of mobile money has dropped. And so money in circulation and value of transactions has already dropped. Now with it, even if it gets to be passed, you would realize that there will be a further drop. I, for one, have cleared out my mobile money. I have 22 pesos left in it.
You're not using it again.
I won't use it again. I won't use it again.
Boycott.
Absolutely, I'm boycotting it as a principle.
Okay.
As a principle, I have 22 pesos in my mobile money. So that's my personal position.
Okay.
Now to the...
Hold on. I think Doctor wants to just respond to that quickly, just to that statement, just briefly, and I'll let you continue. Doc. Okay, the network is bad. He would have wanted to respond to that, but let's carry on. I'm sorry, Doc, but let's carry on.
Now, I mean, to some of the issues that Kabila raised, I mean, it's just I don't know. It's painful listening to Kabila this morning. Painful because the intellectual dishonesty is just on display for everybody to see. Look, for anyone, I don't even think the finance minister will say some of the things Kabila has said, that majority of Ghanaians, or that nobody can say majority of Ghanaians are against the E-Levy. If the finance minister did not realize and recognize and accept the fact that majority of Ghanaians were against the E-Levy, he would not have embarked on his roadshow. That roadshow was to explain and try to build confidence in the majority of Ghanaians. So even the finance minister who is bringing the bill believes and admits that majority of Ghanaians were opposed to the bill. And you sit here and you want to pontificate and paint a picture that majority of Ghanaians support the bill. Please, I mean, let's be as frank as possible with some of the issues. And let me be clear on one thing. The Asin not MP is still MP. You see, my brother Kabila in some of the conclusions, that's why I say it's painful to listen to him this morning. To suggest that Parliament is 274. I mean, what joke is that? The number of members of Parliament, when the Constitution talks about the members of Parliament, it is a determined figure. It is 275. It is not subject to by-elections or non-by-elections. You understand me? And as we speak today, the MP for Asin North is James Jachi Kwesen. there's been an execution, a stay of execution properly filed, he will be in the chamber today. So nobody
It's
can...
been filed now. Because
It
that's
was
yesterday
filed.
you were saying that...
No, I said at the time...
You were in the process. Did you not say that?
You see, when you want to be mischievous to please certain interest, you would twist what has been said. What I said was very clear. I said, at the time that the decision to walk out was made, the processes to file were underway. Why? Filing a process, is it a day's process?
So it's been done?
It was completed yesterday. Even by the time we finished the press conference, it was done. But at the material moment where we had to make that decision, the processes were underway. It has been completed. It was completed yesterday. It was filed yesterday. So as we speak today, there is an MP for Asin North, and his name is James Jachikwason. And so you cannot sit here and say that per your own calculation and your own extrapolation. And thankfully, we don't use your calculation and your submission to say that Parliament is 274 members. Parliament of Ghana is known. I mean, we have kids who watch us. When they go and sit social studies and they ask them how many MPs make up Parliament, are you going to say 274? I mean, this, even a class 1 child do not make this argument. It is 275. Half of that is 137.5, and we've established the precedent that it is 138 members. Look, when he says that MPs don't have respect for our constituents because you didn't go, again, very, very pedestrian populist arguments. Why do I say so? Someone like Okujeto Ablakwa actually even did a live vote. He held a town hall meeting where 331 of his constituents voted against the E-Levy and 4 voted for it. So is that not consultation? I had engagements. I had 18 town hall engagements. Okay, MPs did their consultations. MPs received calls from their constituents, and on the basis of that, took a decision. And so if you sit here and say that because we say there was consultation with our party, I sit in Parliament on the ticket of the party. I am not an independent candidate. And so my party's decision, and that is why there's a whip system in Parliament. And that goes to explain the point I made. That Kabila is trying to dance around and say that, you were still in the chamber, you were not. There is a whip system in Parliament. And when a 3-line whip is issued, it is compliant on, or it is binding on everybody to comply. When a whip is issued, when your leader stands and says that my side and I will no longer participate, no member of Parliament is going to sit there and participate. And I've given you a typical example. I gave you the example of the STX motion.
Yeah.
He has not contradicted that. Where even when not just any ordinary member, the then minority whip, and I'm mentioning names, Frederick Opariansa, tried to stay back after Mensa Bonsu had said they were not going to take part in the STX motion and they walked out. He was not recognized by the speaker. Don't forget, as a member of Parliament, your presence in Parliament depends on being recognized by the speaker. The speaker refused to recognize the minority whip, not just any other member, because the speaker said your leader had walked out and stated that your side will not do business. So for you to suggest that MPs on their way out who had turned their back, again, in Parliament, and there have been times where the speaker has called members to order. Joe Weiss, Michael Quay, Alban Bagbin have called members to order that you don't turn your back to the speaker when you are on the floor. You only turn your back after when you're exiting the chamber. So when you are on the floor, you can't turn your back to Mr. Speaker or the mace. So if you have members of Parliament with their back to the mace and their back to the speaker, and you say you want to count them, it smacks of desperation. So you see, look, for me, like I said, you can dance around, but I'm really not perturbed by it. What matters to me is what I keep saying to the people of Ghana. The minority in Parliament, the 137 of us, have shown good faith. We have shown that we are committed to the will of the Ghanaian people. I am humbled, and I believe the members of our caucus, all 137, we are humbled by the reposition of faith and trust in us, by the people of Ghana. The people who should repose trust in the government have lost hope in the government and repose trust in us. We have not failed you. We will not fail you. We will continue to hold this government to account. And that's why we are saying that this is not over by a long stretch. The case is going to go to the court. Yes, I believe, and I agree with those who say that we actually have very little faith and trust in the courts. However, this is an opportunity for the courts to distinguish themselves. Just 3 weeks ago, the court gave a ruling on this particular matter, on the subject of this matter, the matter of constitutionality of the numbers for quorum and of voting in Parliament. Now we are asking the court to distinguish itself. Let's see how the court will extricate itself from the quagmire that they have sent Parliament.
Did you exhaust the internal processes before going to the court? And I'm asking this because we didn't hear any of you, at least if you did you raise the question of quorum for a head count?
You can't raise the question of quorum when you've walked out. That's the point I'm making.
And there was
you've
no
walked
issue.
out, and you see to resolve that issue, when the minority walked out, on the 30th of November, please, and Kabila, you are disrupting.
We're wrapping up. I wish Charles could
on the 30th of November, when the minority walked out, okay, was there anybody to raise quorum?
Did you check the votes and proceedings at the table office just to check if that side had the numbers?
Bella, we were all in parliament. We know that Adwa Safo, the honorable member for Domin Kwabinya, was not present. We know that Ebenezer Kum, the MP for Ahanta, was not present. I have told you, I met Carlos Ahinka, and again, correction, not when I was walking out of the chamber. I met him in the MP's walkway on the way to Mr. Speaker's office. You understand me? So if they were not present in the chamber, you cannot vote when you are not present in the chamber. So those people were not present in the chamber. And you see, when they say Mr. Speaker made a ruling, why? Mr. Speaker will rule because there's been no challenge to it. When on the 30th of November, there was nobody on the majority side to challenge the issue of quorum. What happened? The Speaker ruled and rightfully went ahead to say that the budget had been rejected. When they came back the following Tuesday, when Mr. Speaker was not present and Joe Wise was presiding, what did they do? They passed a motion for rescission. So those are the processes of parliament. You don't remain in parliament on the floor to raise an issue of quorum when you have walked out. When you walk out, you are no longer part of the
But did you check at the table office at least?
Bella, we know the numbers in there. We know we were in parliament. We count ourselves. We know. And I'm saying,
you know you have to sign.
Did Adwa Safo was not present? How will she sign? Ebenezer Kum was not present. How will he sign?
But yesterday was a voice vote, not a head count.
No, but Bella, you see, you only have a head count. No parliamentary proceedings do not start with a head count. They start with a voice vote. It is a challenge to a voice vote that leads to a head count. So if there is no challenge to the voice vote because we had walked out, you can have a head count.
Let Charles speak. Kabila, hold on.
I want to go.
Okay.
Oh, you can go.
I want to say something before.
But you should give me more time. There are two MPP reps on the show.
No, there are not two MPP reps.
There are not two MPP reps. Kabila is not an MPP rep.
Okay, two pro-government reps.
No, but you see, Bella.
Just a minute so that Charles can speak, please, since you have to go.
I take exception to a lot of things he has said. I won't speak in the same manner. And he knows that dishonesty is coming from his side and not me. Two, I have said before that a lot of the issues and the challenges associated with this whole E-Levy discussion was resultant from poor stakeholder engagement. And I hold government to that.
Okay.
I want to say this. I am happy that at least closure has come to this matter. And as you rightly pointed out, since nobody raised the issue of quorum, there was no issue whatsoever.
Okay.
If people think there is an issue, that's why they've gone to the Supreme Court.
All right.
Let that argument be made there in that proper forum. And as I warned, don't go and do U-turn and come and say you were trying to satisfy the emotions of your members. Lastly, this is an appeal to government. You see the spirit with which I have spoken in defense of the righteousness of passage of E-Levy. I want to assure Ghanaians and the government that the same energy will be used to seek accountability on revenues generated from this law that has come into being. And let us all make sure that we will support with good faith and goodwill and make Ghana work again for Ghanaians. God bless our women.
God bless you too. I know you have to leave, so we'll allow you to. But Charles.
Okay, I believe that we need to believe in our, use our institutions, which the NDC doing now, based on Article 102, 104, and the standing orders. The way the E-Levy has been passed, so I would want us to look at it and then actually introspect it well. Like Kabila said, the judicious use of our resources. Because if we keep dancing about it, just as some George is doing, we end up asking what the name of God's Father is, which doesn't exist. Now, I also agree with the economists that you spoke to, that there should be a renegotiation of most of the contracts. It just doesn't have to be the extractive industry. Everything, where we have tax rebate here and there and all that, so that there's a judicious use of our resources.
Okay.
The other thing is the property rate that he spoke. I also agree with him, but then we shouldn't just do it as a flat rate. I think that we should go where.
Carry on.
I think that we should actually look at it from the point of view as the number of rooms in the house and all that, because it's done in other jurisdictions where you have 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms and all that, so that will limit, actually increase the revenue that we generate on the basis of the minority actually fighting the government on actually passing the E-Levy. I believe that they're going to the Supreme Court, and I believe that it's an affirmation or confirmation of what the Supreme Court said, which is the sole right of interpreting our law. So on the basis of it, I think that the E-Levy has been passed. Let us actually look at how the government is going to spend the money.
Okay.
Finally, the regional chief imam of the Western region is that died yesterday. May his soul rest in peace. He would be buried today. I think Dr. Ustaz Osman. May his soul rest in peace.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us in the studio this morning. It's been a very heated conversation, I must say, and well, we're waiting to see what happens in the Supreme Court. But I've been speaking to Honorable Sam Nate George. He's the MP for Ningo Prampram, and also Charles Bisu is the Western Regional Secretary for the MPP. Earlier, we had Dr. Edu Owusu-Sarkodie. He's an economics lecturer at the University of Ghana, and Kwame Bonfe Jr. is a managing editor for the National Forum newspaper. TV3 New Day continues. We have more coming up. Keep watching.